Today we're going to talk about dividing fractions and some of those rules. So table of content, September 13th, dividing fractions. It's going to go on page 17. And then you need to cut out this foldable. And make sure when you cut it out that you cut it out on the line on the inside. Because as you can see right here, I'm not sure if you can see in the video, but if I were to cut out this line, I would have probably cut off some of those words. So cut it out based on the inside. So pause the video while you get caught up, and then we're going to go to page 17. So on page 17, what we're going to do is we are going to take this and we are going to glue it with just a strip of glue right here on this. Because what we want to do is we want to be able to turn that up that way. So put a strip of glue right there. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and crease that so I can see and make it to where it opens a little bit easier. So I'll put it like that. And then I'm going to take it and line it up with my grid paper and make it nice and straight. And so once you get it glued down, it should look like that. Make sure it's good and stuck. All right, and then we'll go through these notes. Number one, what is a reciprocal? What is a reciprocal? Reciprocal is the inverse. We also call that the multiplicative inverse. So underneath this section right here, I'm going to take some notes. So it is the multiplicative inverse. So, for example, the reciprocal of 2/5 is 5/2. So, another example might be 3/4 is the multiplicative inverse of 4/3. And we know that whenever we're looking at the multiplicative inverse, when we multiply those straight across, we should get a 1. So 2 times 5 is 10, 5 times 2 is 10, and 10/10 is 1. So let's look at this. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. And 12/12 is 1. So multiplicative inverses or reciprocals, when you multiply, their product is 1. And I'm just going to draw a little line so that I know. I kind of went past that a little bit, but that's okay. All right, dividing fractions. Let's look at the rules for dividing fractions. Dividing fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So 7/8 divided by 1/2 is the same thing as keeping 7/8, changing divide to multiply, multiplying by the reciprocal of 1/2. The reciprocal of 1/2 is, as we looked up here, we flip it 2/1. All right, so let's try one. You're going to keep, change the division to multiplication, and then you are going to flip. You're going to use the reciprocal, or flip that second fraction upside down. So let's look. 2 1/2 divided by 1/4. Well, we can't leave this mixed number. We have to turn it to an improper fraction. We were doing that yesterday. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 5/2. Change this to the reciprocal, or change to multiply, and then flip to the reciprocal, 4/1. Multiply straight across. 5 times 4 is 20. 2 times 1 is 2. Cannot leave it improper, so we say 20 divided by 2, and we get 10. 10 is our answer. So that is how you divide fractions. And then the last thing that we're going to look at is dividing mixed numbers. Dividing mixed numbers. Remember to change them to improper fractions. Well, we just did that there. Multiply by the reciprocal and then simplify. So let's try another example of that. Maybe one that might be a little bit harder. 3 1/3 divided by 2/3. So 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. 10/3. Change the divide to multiply and use the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3 over 2. 10 times 3 is 30. 3 times 2 is 6. And 30 divided by 6 is 5. So your answer is 5. All right. So that's our review of reciprocals, multiplicative inverse, which are the same thing. Reciprocal and multiplicative inverse are the same things. And here's our notes on dividing. And if you're still having trouble with either simplifying or changing a mixed number to an improper fraction, look back at yesterday's notes, and that's where you're going to find those. Let's look at our problem-solving practice. So let's first look at the multiplying side. If 4/5 of the population of a certain town is considered to be middle class and the population of the town is 2,000, how many people are considered middle class? So as we said on our warm-up, of means to multiply. So 4/5 times 2,000 over 1 equals, now use mental math, 4 times 2 is 8, 8,000 divided by 5. Now we can do, you can use scratch paper on this. I'm just going to do it like this. Five goes into 36 times. We've got these 2 zeros left, so make sure you bring those straight up. So 1,600 are considered middle class. And you probably want to write a little smaller than I did. All right, so you're going to work on multiplying fractions on this side. Let's turn it over. Dividing fractions on the other side. If a puppet requires 3/4 yard of material, how many puppets can be made from 9 yards of material? So the tricky part of dividing fractions is you have to decide what part is going to be split. So here, is it the 3/4 yard that's going to be split, or is it the 9 yards? Because whichever one is going to be split has to go first. And in this case, we want to take this big pile of 9 yards and we want to split it into 3/4 yards. So we make that as 9 over 1 divided by 3/4. We're taking the 9 and we're splitting it into pieces that are 3/4. So then let's follow our rules. 9 over 1 times 4 over 3. 9 times 4 is 36 over 3. And 36 over 3 is 12. 12. So 12 puppets can be made. All right, so that's your work for today. You need to finish the other 7 problems multiplying on this side, finish the other 7 problems dividing on this side, and if you need help, see a teacher. And then if you get done with this, work on iExcel or your MyPath in iReady.